Hey, my name is Jonathan Hadel and I make music as Pink Buddha, and welcome to Music Theory Mondays, which is a new series that I'm doing that's going to tackle big questions about music. Like today's question, which is, where did music theory come from? And before we get into that, I think it's helpful to step back for a minute and think about music like a language. And that's a comparison that you're going to hear me make a lot in this series, is comparing music to a language. So where did language come from? Obviously, communication is ancient. People have been making noises and sounds to communicate for a long time. Language is based upon patterns, not rules. And I say not rules because these patterns are not static. They're constantly changing. Over time, language patterns have changed a lot. Now, here's the thing. These patterns were organically formed and solidified probably by some combination of repetition and popularity. I mean, no one sat down, thought up all these grammatical rules, and then was like, here you go, here's your language, talk. Grammar then is essentially reverse engineered. The language exists, and then it's like, okay, what are the patterns that exist in this language? And so how does this relate to music and music theory? Well, if music is a language, then music theory is the grammar of music. And like grammar for a language that's reverse engineered, music theory is also reverse engineered. And just like a language, which you could speak and understand fluently, even though you didn't know how to read and write, the same thing is true with music. People often refer to that as playing by ear. You don't need to understand musical notation to be able to play and appreciate music. And that's because music didn't start with notation and theory. It was something that people did play by ear. They picked it up orally. Again, music theory is reverse engineered from a language that already existed. But let's come back to today's question, which is, where did music theory come from? And maybe we should be clear for a moment that when we refer to, quote, music theory, we're talking about modern Western music, which is by no means the only style of music in the world that's existed. It just happens to be really dominant right now. The type of chords we use, the tuning, the harmonies, the melody lines. So this might make you wonder, how in the world did Western music become the dominant form? Partly it's due to the dominance of Western culture in general, but also probably due to music notation, which really culminated in the Baroque era. And what they came up with at that time to figure out how to write things down is essentially the same thing we use today. So that style, that form of music, the tunings that they used, had a lot of influence. All right, so in summary, where did music theory come from? It was reverse engineered from the music that was being played at that time. We're like, how do we write down what we're doing? They formalized it, and that formalization led to the codification of that language. Now that brings me to another interesting question, which is, do you need to know music theory in order to make music? And we're going to cover that next week. So be sure to subscribe if you want to catch that one and follow along on a series like this where we discuss these kinds of topics.